Here's Sark's opening comments today when he spoke to the media, when he was talking about the Iowa State game.
Alrighty, quick recap of the ball game the other night. Going back through the tape, I thought our guys played a really good football game. I know we had some self-inflicted wounds in the first half that took 2 touchdowns off the board, and naturally, had the fumble inside the 10. But I thought our guys, did a great job keeping their poise and composure. Our defense continued to play well. We came out in the second half, and of our 5 possessions, 2 touchdowns, a field goal. We had the 1 punt, and then we finished the game with the ball in our possession at the end of the game. So really efficient second half. I thought that defensively, again, our ability to stop the run, to pretty much make them one-dimensional. And again, we gave up the 1 pop pass to the tight end there in short yardage, but I thought our defense had a heck of a game. I thought offensively the balance was there without, obviously not having Jonathan. I thought Cedric Baxter really showed up. It was a nice job by Jaden Blue and his ability to step into the fold. So all in all, I thought we played a really good game. Controlled the game, even just on our mindset, even into that fourth quarter. So again, I like the poise that our guys showed in that game when things clearly weren't going our way, and we were kind of stubbing our own toes there in the first half, but nobody panicked, and I thought that's a sign of maturity for our team. So that was a real positive there.
So let's start on the offensive end for Texas. This is a good team win. There is a couple things that stood out. Quinn Ewers was able to go 23 for 33 in the game. He wasn't chunking the ball down the field the whole game, but just making makeable passes. Was able to get it down. He didn't throw an interception, 2 touchdowns. I think there were points when he held on to it too long. That's how you get to the 4 sacks. But you're able to get Quinn Ewers in a rhythm. He feels okay, and put him into a situation where he looks like a good enough quarterback to go ahead and win you a bunch of games this year. And he's already, you're at 10 wins. Let's start there too. We're at 10 wins for this Texas team, which is a great sign to see after all the years of not being able to get there. 10 wins, one of the things you wanted to see from this season was a 10-win season. You want to see them playing for the Big 12 championship, which, look, if I start going through the possible scenarios for the Big 12 championship right now, by Wednesday when I go off the air and we're giving you up for Thanksgiving, then we'll be done with all the possible scenarios. There's too many. There's too many possible scenarios. The basic solution for Texas, though, they're pretty far in. There's only one scenario, I believe, where Texas does not get to the Big 12 championship, and they can solve all of their problems of winning you're in. So that's what you want to see. But Quinn Ewers looking like a guy who can beat any team now because he started to figure out that high three down. Quinn was figuring it out. Sark was figuring it out. They were making the right passes and the right point. Getting the players were able to make the catches. But more importantly than that, possibly more importantly than that, when you lose Brooks and you lose Jonathan Brooks and you wonder, is your running back room going to be ready to step up? We saw the answer. The running back room, not fully. Jaden Blue had 7 carries, didn't do great, but, he's still coming up, does not have a lot of game experience. The experience that C.J. Baxter had showed off. 20 attempts, 117 yards. He was averaging close to 6 yards a carry in that game. That's a really, really good sign for a couple things. One, that he can carry the ball 20 times in a game and stay in the game. And even though I believe there was at one point he did go into the medical tent, just get checked out, he came right back into the game. So seeing C.J. Baxter be able to be that guy and be able to stay in a game and then be able to come down at the end of the game and close the game for Texas. Seeing that you still have a running back that is going to be able to play those moments. Now you're going to play against a Texas Tech team that's going to be difficult, and whoever you play in the Big 12 championship could be difficult. And depending on what happens in the next 2 weeks, we'll see if they are able to get in that college football playoff. No one lost again, so you're not really moving up. There is the Jordan Travis injury for Florida State, so that may open it up, but Washington didn't lose. Oregon didn't lose. Michigan didn't lose. Ohio State didn't lose, even though Michigan was tested for a little bit in there. Georgia didn't lose. So you didn't, no one ahead of you lost. So you're still going to have to go out there and win your last 2 games to have any hope of this, which you were going to have to do anyway. Just stay on what you do. Sark said it today. Win and you're in. That's the philosophy for the Big 12 championship. That's where you need to be. That's where your mind needs to be. But C.J. Baxter being able to be in this game and have that 100-yard game, have 20 carries, be able to finish out a game. Sark talked about C.J. Baxter being able to close out a game and still having that run threat for a Sark that really wants to run the ball to close out games and be able to pick up first downs and get the win.
Yeah, I thought CJ got stronger as the game went on. You know, he had some really nice runs in the second half of that game, some physical runs. You know, I think it's pretty safe to say, you know, Iowa State's a really physical defense. They're an excellent defense. And there's hard yards in there, and they're physical in the secondary when they tackle. And I thought CJ did that and got stronger as the game went on. You know, so that's really encouraging for us, knowing kind of what's in store for us as we move forward. But I'd also say I think some of that is a credit to the coaches of making the right adjustments and calling the right stuff that I think puts our players in a really good position too. And the players understand why we're calling what we're calling there. But again, I'm very impressed by CJ. I was really impressed by Jaden Blue. I know he didn't have some of the wow plays that maybe we were all kind of hoping, but the fact that he's in there on 4th and 1 at the end of the game to get that first down, I think speaks volumes to the development and the growth that he has as a player and how far he's come, where, you know, he was just kind of the highlight reel perimeter guy. It's all of a sudden he's running between the tackles on 4th and 1 to get a first down to seal the victory. So that was definitely encouraging as well.
So it is. Encouraging is the word. The running back room was very encouraging because you saw guys that are going to still be here next year, and we figured Jonathan Brooks will be back, but it will be not the beginning of the season possibly, depending on his recovery time. But to see what C.J. Baxter is already doing in his freshman season is very encouraging. To see Xavier Worthy have a good game, you know, this would seem like a game where he was being used in the right places. He had the touchdown on the return. His return game's getting stronger. The touchdown gets called back. But that he broke that touchdown without the penalty. He didn't need the penalty that he got to play. So it's good to see them. And speaking of Xavier and speaking of all the guys who did leave the game with injuries, here's Sark's injury report from today since we have not played that yet.
So injury-wise, I feel actually pretty good on a Monday. Coming out, it was a physical game Saturday night, and we had a variety of guys that kind of went down. I don't foresee any of those guys being out Friday. So, you know, obviously we need to monitor that as the week goes. But I do feel, you know, confident enough today that we'll have everybody that was available Saturday night will be available Friday night. And again, probably a better served question for a little later in the week when we really get to practice.
That's a good report. Everybody seems to be practicing. You'll know later in the week if somebody has a re-aggravation or if someone's not ready to go. Right now, it seems like everybody's going to be able to go. But offensively, it was a pretty positive game against a team that has given Texas trouble. It was a night game. It was not as cold as earlier predicted, so not that bad of weather. So you were able to do it, but it was a good enough game where you saw Texas not look dominant maybe offensively, but you saw Texas show that they can play against a defense that they're not normally good against. They did figure out some things. They were able to play the game in a way that they wanted to play conservatively, not trying to turn the ball over. Yes, there was a fumble, but you also were able to not turn the ball over too much that it became a major issue. You were able to also go 5 for, if I can pull this up again, 5 for 13 on third down. Not great, but you're getting better at third down because that's been an issue. You went 1 for 1 on fourth down. The bigger news is for that defense that held Iowa State to 3 for 11 on third down, was able to get off the field in a bend but don't break defense that has been criticized a lot this year because they are allowing. We saw too many slant passes. We saw all the things that we've been seeing that Texas fans are unhappy about. But for the most part, they never broke in this game. It was a bend but don't break. They had a big play to push Iowa State back that led to a missed field goal. The run defense, that defensive line and that run defense is second to none right now. Again, a total of net 9 yards is what Iowa State produced in that game. Under 10 yards net is what they're giving them. They're averaging under a half yard a carry in that game. That's what you want to see from a defense. And what Texas has built on this defensive line, what T'Vondre Sweat, man, when he went down, that was scary, and he comes right back on the field. But T'Vondre Sweat, Byron Murphy, how this defensive line is reacting to see the plays where David Benda gets in and makes a big play. Anthony Hill was actually playing really well, trying to get in there and pressuring the quarterback. I thought they brought pressure a lot better in this game, even if they weren't getting to the quarterback. They got 3 sacks, which is pretty good for a team that's only allowed 9 on the season. To get 3 in that game, you got a third of their entire season put on them right there. That's a good milestone right there to get against them. But more importantly, you are now telling every team that they are not going to be able to run the ball on you. We know going up against Texas Tech, they're going to want to run the ball. And if Texas can stop that run again, it does really limit what teams can do, and it limits them putting them in to more 3rd and longs. And that's where they really were able to put Iowa State in their place and be able to control the game enough that Texas was able to hold Iowa State to enough 3rd and longs that they were only 3 for 11 in that. And the secondary still has some issues. They are still trying to figure it out. They played well in run support, but again, that passing and the slant passes still got to them to an extent. They didn't break, though. And I believe that's kind of what we're going to have to expect with Texas from this point on is, look, if we're only going to allow 16 points on a road game, then we're going to be okay with them hitting some passes over the middle and them hitting some passes that are not big plays in 7, 8, 9-yard passes. Those are going to happen. I don't like seeing it any more than anybody else does, but at the same point, this is not a shutdown defense completely. They're a shutdown run defense. The defensive line is playing out of this world right now. But I don't know if the rest of the defense is going to be up to that level to go. But one of the things Sark talked about today that I want to play for you, and it's a bit lengthy, but he talked about the culture. And I think the culture is, Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy are a big part of that. And this defensive line, setting the culture at Texas for the defensive line going forward, setting the culture of this is a defensive line that will stop anybody. And it goes on the offense, it goes on the defense. But this was a tough game, and Texas played tough in a tough game and came out the tougher team. And I know I said tough too many times there, but that's something that you really want to see as you continue on in this season in the next few games when everyone's starting to get banged up and every game you're feeling all your injuries and it's getting colder and you're playing against teams that now everything's on the line and they're trying to spoil your season and you're trying to do whatever you can do to get those wins. The toughness is going to be necessary. They were tough against Iowa State. They're the better team. They were the more talented team. They should have won. They could have probably won by more. But for how banged up this team is, I appreciate the fact that they were out there and they were tough. And Sark was asked by Anwar Richardson, he was asked about culture and what it meant to him, and more than just, the standard, well, your culture is this and your culture is, and how do you build it? But how has he built the culture that Texas is now a 10-win team in 3 seasons where he's built them back up to where Texas wants to be? How did he build that culture and what does it mean to him? A little bit lengthy of an answer, but I think it's a good one here from Sark.
How long do I have? That's a tough. I need like a semester. I should teach a class. No. I think this. I think first of all, and that's a fair question and a good question. I think the first thing about culture is organic. It is not a sign up in your building. It's not a T-shirt you wear. It's not breaking the team down and saying, "Hey, culture on 3." I think culture is organic, right? It manifests itself with the relationships that you build. I think that there's things that we talk to in our culture that are of the utmost importance. Commitment is really important to our culture. Discipline is really important to our culture, right? Accountability is very important to our culture. Mental and physical toughness are very important to our culture. Love is very important to our culture. Vulnerability is very important to our culture. Transparency is really important to our culture. That's just to name a few. But I can't just say those things. We have to live those things, and then we have to have teachable moments along the way, A, to celebrate the guys that are doing those things, B, point out when maybe we're not, and then how can we fix it, and then how do we correlate that? Because who you are some of the time is who you are all of the time. And so if you want to be a disciplined football team when you take the field each weekend, you have to be disciplined when you're off the field. How are we in school? How are we in community service? All of it all adds up to that becomes your culture because that is who you are. That's how we go about everyday life. For example, when we have a team meeting and that meeting breaks, I have the same few guys that early on would make sure the team room was clean. There was no Gatorade bottles, there was no tape, there was no trash. And a couple of those guys' names were Roshan Johnson and Bijan Robinson. Well, that elevated to when those guys were gone, the running back room was the ones that cleaned up the team room. To now, when we break a team meeting, everybody looks around. And so it has grown from two guys that has grown into more to when we go to the movies on Friday nights before a ball game, if we have a night game, everybody chirps up, pick up your trash. So I know those sound like little things, but in the end, those are really big things to me because that means that's the way we're thinking all of the time. And if we're doing those little things, and that's why I say to celebrate the small victories, I really celebrate that stuff because I think those actions and that behavior leads to the big victories, leads to 1st and goal on the 5 and your defense has got to get 4 stops, leads to 3rd and 12 backed up on the road and you convert a 1st down. I think it leads to those guys counting on one another, relying on one another because they're doing the right things on a daily basis. And we're not perfect, and I don't expect our guys to be perfect, but if they can be coachable on and off the field and they can learn from one another, then we will continue to grow and our culture will continue to grow. But it takes being vulnerable. It takes being transparent with one another. It takes getting to know one another so that you can have some empathy for what a guy's going through, not just on the field, but off the field, where he came from, what's going on in his life. And we have to share those things. And so in the summer, we do a lot of culture work every Wednesday morning. Now, Friday night, I do a culture exercise before. That's the last thing we do before we go get on the bus, whether it's to go to the hotel or to go get on the plane. Like, we invest a lot in that. And I think that obviously, to me, it's paying dividends because I think culture beats talent if your culture is really strong. Culture and talent together is a pretty powerful force, and that's something that we've tried to create here.
Some good stuff from Sark there. A lot of good stuff about how he's built this team up and kind of the thought behind it and where they're trying to be the tough team that they want to be, and all the things that you realize take time to build. But yeah, when you say you're the person you are, who the person you are on sometimes is who you are all the time, and creating the people that always play tough and always play strong. And, that's not 100%. We've seen that in fourth quarters, but I love the way he put that. I thought it was good to play for you.